This video is sponsored by Ground News. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge tank guy. I know some of you may find that surprising to hear. The whole idea around it just kind of scares me. Like, it's so much pressure. I mean, healing is one thing, but there's usually a good handful of you. But as a tank, at most you have one other tank with you. The whole raid is depending on you. I'll just stick to melee DPS where I'm comfy and safe. Yeah? What do you mean the video isn't about that kind of tank? Okay, yeah, I admit. These tanks are pretty cool. Tanks changed the entire way war was waged starting in World War I, where they're referred to as land ships. The term tank is kind of murky as to where it originated from, but the most convincing story I heard is factory workers who were building the things were told that they were mobile water tanks. Evolution continued on through World War II, where we started seeing tanks with a more familiar silhouette and less something out of 40K. Eventually, in the 70s, the same company that makes the PT fucking Cruiser built the first prototype of the Abrams. It's been the symbol of American armor for the last 40 years, and with the newer versions on the horizon, it seems like that isn't going to change anytime soon. So let's talk about development. Up until the Abrams adoption, the US had been using M60 Patton tanks. Variants of Pattons had been used since the 50s, including the M48, which we'll get back to in a bit here. The Russian T-72 that was adopted in the early 70s outclassed the US armor at the time. The US had an F-15 moment. Oh, wait, we haven't talked about the F-15. Soon, I promise. Anyway, they panicked over the theoretical performance of the Russian armor and scrambled to update their own. The same year the T-72 was adopted, the US started to explore designs for its next generation main battle tank, which was given the name XM815, eventually renamed to the XM1. Two companies submitted designs, being Chrysler and GM, car companies, wild, I know. Chrysler's defense department would eventually be bought up by General Dynamics later down the line. Anyway, Chrysler's design won mostly due to the use of an aircraft-style turbine engine that, while very fuel-hungry, could run on multiple types of fuel and was incredibly light for the power it provided. The M1 Abrams kind of stands alone when compared against contemporary rivals because of a key few design choices that we'll cover now, I guess. In terms of notable technology and design choices, the Abrams struck a good balance of new and shiny, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The US at the time was adamant in skipping out on auto-loading technology used by Russian tanks, saying that a dedicated crew member was more reliable and could even be faster than the auto-loader if well-trained. Early auto-loaders were also prone to jamming and would usually need to return to the depot to be fixed, meaning if the tank wanted to stay in the fight, it wouldn't have its main gun. Early models of the Abrams came with a 105mm rifled cannon, just like the British Challenger series of tanks, which still use a rifled barrel. The Challenger is kind of an outlier in this respect, as most tanks don't use rifled barrels today, but it is kind of considered the sniper tank because it has demonstrated consistently accurate shots, even scoring the longest tank kill on record at around 3 miles. Obligatory Challenger mentioned, it has a built-in teapot. Anyway, the 105mm is kind of small for a tank main cannon, especially post-2000, so newer versions have upgraded to the 120mm smoothbore cannon. As I hinted at before, the majority of tanks nowadays fire from a smoothbore. Most modern tank rounds use an irregularly shaped projectile housed in a sabot, a kind of fairing that uses air resistance to separate after it leaves the barrel. This means the tank can fire things out of the barrel that aren't barrel-shaped, like the large dart-like kinetic penetrator rounds used to fight other tanks. Kind of cool, the casing for modern shells are also combustible, so other than the base plate, they're burned up with the powder. Starting with the early Abrams, they also carried two M240 7.62mm machine guns, one being an independently turning weapon on top of the turret to be used by the loader, and the other as a coaxial gun, meaning the smaller regular gun will point wherever the main cannon does. In case, you see 2 to 3 dudes and don't want to blast them with the main cannon, you can just shoot them with the small one. It also had an M2 50 caliber machine gun mounted on top to be used by the tank commander, and some later versions allowed it to be remote controlled from within the tank. It can sometimes carry a second coaxial M2 mounted above the main cannon, just strapped on. Optics-wise, it has all the standard stuff you'd expect, including night vision, thermal vision, backup sights, laser rangefinders, and periscopes. The barrel of the cannon features this, which is a standard feature on most modern tanks, and it helps vent out the leftover propellant after the cannon fires, keeping the crew from breathing it in. On the sides of the turret, it's equipped with smoke grenade launchers. It can also deploy a form of smoke by farting fuel at out the engine in a pseudo afterburner, but only if using diesel. Defensively, it can use an automatic protection system, or APS, which has several methods of defeating incoming anti-tank munitions. It can use dazzling lasers or smoke to interrupt laser or optically guided missiles, or it can, quote, do something to knock the missile out of the air at close range. How this is done isn't publicly known, according to a surface-level Google search, but most likely by firing some kind of counter-projectile at the incoming munition. It also has armor plating, very similar to ceramic body armor, but rather than a backing of Kevlar, it has a backing of steel, and also a front plate of steel. It's like a ceramic sandwich with steel bread. It can also be further up armored by adding on explosive reactive armor, or ERA plates. They also eventually received depleted uranium armor in the late 80s to further protect against kinetic penetrators. Another interesting quirk is due to the suspension system. The tracks aren't symmetrical, the left one being a bit more forward than the right, causing more wear and tear on that side. Speed-wise, it can get up to 45 miles per hour on the road and 30 in the dirt. The most notable feature that sets the Abrams apart from the near-peer counterparts is, again, as I said before, the engine, which is a turbine engine, similar to that you'd find on an aircraft. The power-to-weight ratio on this thing is much higher than what you'd find on more conventional diesel engines found on other tanks. This allows more room on the tank for offensive or defensive systems, keeping the same weight as an opponent, but being, well, tankier. You can still use diesel in the engine if needed, along with a few other fuel types. It isn't too picky. All that said, as mentioned before, the engine is a gas guzzler, even for tanks, although most tanks aren't the most economical form of transportation to begin with. You've heard of miles per gallon? Try gallons per mile. Anyway, even with the efficiency not being ideal, the US thought this trade-off was worth the benefits. Also, since I didn't really mention it before, the Abrams has a crew of 4, being a driver, who drives, I didn't think I had to spell that one out for you, a gunner, who aims and fires the main cannon, a loader, who reloads the main cannon and has a 240 mounted on the turret, and a tank commander, who leads the tank and dictates its movements, communicates over the radio, and operates the top-mounted M2. So let's talk variants. Technically, there are only 3, the M1, the M1A1, and the M1A2, but it isn't as simple as all that. I probably won't go into every difference, but we'll hit the big ones. So the M1. This is the first model with the 105mm rifled cannon. They ended up building nearly 3,000 of these guys, with the IP M1 added some upgraded systems like suspension and armor. The M1A1 added the 120mm smoothbore cannon, and notably an NBC system to keep the crew safe in case of spicy air. Under the M1 umbrella, they delivered a bunch of packages that included things like depleted uranium armor, digital upgrade, and improved FLIR sights for the cannon and the M2. The M1A2 is a similar deal with numerous upgrade packages, the most famous being the system enhancement packages 1, 2, and 3. These added things like thermal sights for the commander, crows as a standard, improved crew cooling, increased power, air bursting rounds, a trophy system APS, and a bunch of other bells and whistles. SCP-V4 was planned, and it even started to be implemented, but was canceled in 2023 in favor of a full upgrade to the entire tank platform. General Dynamics recently unveiled the Abram X, which isn't so much a new variant, but what's called a technology demonstrator. Much like how the T-72 scared the US into the Abrams of the 70s, the new Russian T-14 scared the US into updating into a new tank. The Abrams X features a new hull and turret, which actually uses an autoloader. However, the crew can enter the turret to clear a jam if needed. This also reduces the crew from 4 down to 3. The X is also considerably lighter, coming in at just 60 tons, compared to the most recent Abrams at 75 plus tons. Like the T-14, it features an independently moving 30mm cannon used to engage light armored vehicles like IFVs without needing the main cannon. Unlike the T-14, which uses a modified captured German World War II designed engine, the Abram X sports a hybrid electric engine, making it the world's edgiest Prius. All these features are things that the US put on a new tank wish list, so General Dynamics threw it all on a new tank to see what works and what doesn't. Most likely, a new tank won't be called the Abrams X, but the Abrams M1E3, and will incorporate all the technology used on the Abram X. Some other notable variants of the Abrams are a turretless bridge layer, turretless recovery vehicle, turretless mine clearing vehicle, and even a command vehicle with a fake turret, which is hilarious. The Abrams combat record is outstanding, losing only 2 tanks to enemy forces in Desert Storm while racking up a tremendous kill count of 150 T-72s. the tank used by the Iraqi forces. In one battle, an Abrams took on 7 T-72s and came out on top. Hell, the US destroyed more M1s in friendly fire incidents than the Iraqis did. Now, it wouldn't be a mimiaga video if we didn't talk some shit on Pierre Spray.
Oh, this guy.
Would you believe it if I said in a 2007 presentation, Spray claimed that the M1 Abrams was unfit for use in the Middle East, and the US should have switched back to patent tanks. No, not M60 patents, M48 patents from like the 50s. Why? It came with more machine guns to sweep ditches.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Can't make this shit up. Thank God no one in the Pentagon listened to this dusty sack of bad ideas. And it looks like 9 other countries chose to ignore him too, because in addition to the US Army and Marines, the Abrams is also used by Australia, Egypt, Iraq, Kuwait, Morocco, Poland, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, and most recently Ukraine. There's also some reports that the Islamic State and Hezbollah have gotten their hands on some. I do want to take just a second to talk to you guys about a topic that's very important to me, and that's misinformation, especially in the news. News media on both sides of the spectrum, the political spectrum, not the military enthusiast spectrum. Anyway, both sides of the spectrum have a tendency to distort the truth to fit their respective narratives. If you want to read about the facts and be able to filter out the bias, take a look at today's video sponsor, Ground News. Ground News is a website that collects and sorts online news articles into topics and breaks down who is reporting on the events in what way, so you can quickly and easily read the stories and see which side is saying what. The point is to give you the tools to recognize your own biases and find the truth in the reporting. There's even the blind spot feature, which will highlight articles reported by only the left or the right, so you can see if there are any events you're missing out on. Look, if you want to keep getting your news from Russian Facebook bots, please be my guest. But if you want to elevate your media literacy abilities with Ground News, you can use my link in the description to get 40% off their premium membership. And hey, do me a favor, if you do decide to use the link, don't use honey. Make sure they don't steal your referral. And hey, if you don't know about the honey situation, guess where you can look it up. Break free of your echo chamber and check out Ground News. It's the best way to read the news. And thanks again to Ground News for sponsoring this video. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to cover on the history of the tank. So here comes the part where we look at how the vehicle operates in some popular games. Now, there are also a lot of older titles that feature the Abrams, so we'll take a quick look at those with the honorable mentions.
Fucking no, bitch. Hey! Got all this paper, I don't go to class. Shorty look good with that double stuffed ass. Shoe made a gator, so I'll see you later. Your boy made the fade all. Your shit is trash. She only a 5 in the face, so her head get a bag and my time don't get waste. Give me a time and a place and I'm pulling up fast cause my tongue like to taste. Ooh, how do you do that? Keep my shit wavy like do-rags. Make me your X-Men like Hugh Jack. I can't be your boo, I'm a douchebag. Got so much drip you kids might need a hoodie. Said I'm out here buzzing but I got a woody. I've been in the field but I feel like a rookie. And I eat that pussy like Milk's favorite cookie.
I fuck these bitches and I'm fucking all these hoes. I'm eating pussy like it's Oreos. You already know.
Ay, you already know, ay, pull up in a robe, ay, think it's shit, I steal his bitch, she ride me rodeo, ay, water how I flow, ay, coke all in my nose, ay, stack it quick, I'm getting rich, you see me, do-si-do, ay, bitch, what do you mean I can't see a titty, and I'm whipping out my peen in the middle of the city, and I'm rocking Nike, but the fit is looking shitty, and I can't hit that bitch, cause I just been so busy, she grab on my dick and say, this little piggy, while out in public, they say, you shotgun Willie, just call me the kid, got a tattoo of Billy, I want my nuts kissed from a bitch, hot as chili, huh, you already know though, why all these motherfuckers want a photo? Kiss my homies on the mouth, I'm a homo. Pulling up by style, feeling Frozone. I've been bagging all these bitches like a Frodo. Catch me whipping on my dick like a yo-yo. And her man is a bum, he a hobo. Matrix in the whip gon' slow-mo. Whoa yo, oh no.
I fuck these bitches and I'm fucking all these hoes. I'm eating pussy like it's Oreos. You already know. Yeah.
Can I take your order, please?
Carl, what do you want? You gotta eat to keep your strength up, man.
Hey, I'll take a number 9, fat boy.
Give me a number 9, just like his. Let me get a number 6 with extra dip.
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese, and a large soda.
So we're gonna go back in time a bit here. Tanks have an interesting history in GTA. The main tanks in the game are known as the Rhino, and in earlier games, they were a original design, but based on some kind of infantry fighting vehicle and were not tracked. The turret in those early iterations was able to be turned, but not elevated. These tanks also had an interesting effect of instantly causing any car they came into contact with to explode. But that was GTA 3 and Vice City. Cut to San Andreas, where the Rhino has a more familiar shape. This version has a great deal of Abrams DNA in it, the turret being the most recognizable. An interesting note is that it still forgoes tracks, opting for a series of road wheels. You can see a lot of modern game design philosophies being implemented here. The thing that sticks out most is that the turret will aim wherever the camera goes, even in terms of elevation this time around. Sadly, the tanks here are mostly set dressing for the military base, Area 69, just outside of the city of Las Venturas. They never play a huge part in the story of San Andreas, and they don't even send them after you with a 5-star wanted level. GTA 4 skipped tanks as well as a lot of other sandbox items like planes for understandable reasons. But come GTA 5, the Rhino returns, but it has a distinct lack of Abrams in it, looking more like a Leopard 2A4 than anything else. A second tank was added to GTA 5, going by the name of the M02 Kunjali. This tank also skips the Abram look for a futuristic design based off of the PL-01 light tank concept. The Kunjali does support multiple crew members, although the driver and gunner are one person. It can even be upgraded with a railgun if you're feeling weird about it. The San Andreas Rhino was a stepping stone for the GTA franchise to make more realistic tanks. Sadly, in my opinion, they left the Abrams design behind. Hopefully in GTA 6 they will rethink that choice and base the Rhino off the M1 again. Battlefield is peak for casual combined arms multiplayer. Infantry, armor, aircraft. The golden trifecta. So it should come as no surprise that the Abrams is present here. It's worth specifying that I'm looking at the Battlefield 3 version that's in 2049, and other versions may have slight differences in terms of equipment or features. Now, while the tank here is multi-crew, it's just for the commander and loader's machine gun emplacements. The driver controls both the movement of the tank and the main gun, so it's entirely possible and viable to solo in this tank. The main operator also has access to the M2 strapped to the barrel, but interestingly enough, the 240 coax is nowhere to be found. I will say they do a decent job in representing that the cannon isn't well suited for infantry targets, as it's a kinetic penetrator. Sure, if you hit someone dead on, it'll rip them in half, but there's little to no splash damage, so having the coax is great for hitting dismounts. Because of the class system in Battlefield, there's probably AT around every corner, but if you're not playing engineer, seeing one of these things in a good position can certainly be an oh shit moment.
"1989. The world looks ahead to a brighter future, but history could have easily taken a different course. 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev becomes the new General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. His attempts at revitalizing an ailing USSR bring him into direct conflict with hardline party members and the military. It doesn't take much to envision a Cold War turned decisively hot."
I'm pretty bad at Warno. For those of you unfamiliar with this game, Warno is a semi-hardcore milsim style real-time strategy game. Now, when I think of an RTS, I think of stuff like StarCraft, Command & Conquer, or Age of Mythology. But Warno plays more like Star Wars, Empire at War. A good amount of your units start on the field. There's no base building. As you participate in battle, you earn points, which you can use to call in reinforcements, which are also limited. It depicts a decent representation of combined arms warfare on the larger scale side of things. It's based around Cold War era technologies, so you see things like the familiar A-10A, AH-64A, and of course the M1 Abrams. From what I experienced, the Abrams here is a pretty competitive unit, but a lot of its usefulness comes down to tactics. If it can get the first shot off on a T-72, it'll be more than likely to come out on top. But in a 2v1 fight or an ambush and against aircraft, it can be pretty vulnerable. Also, much like in real life, it can be a gas guzzler, and more than likely won't be able to make it across the map in one tank. Ha! tank. Anyway, the Abrams is most effective when it's supported by recon elements, infantry, anti-air, supply vehicles, and working in an environment with air superiority. You know, kind of like how it does on a real battlefield. I plan on covering Warno more in the future. The game certainly seems like a good time once you know what you're doing, and I feel like I got a quarter of the way to knowing what I'm doing when I tried it out. Hopefully, I can get better. This is my first time talking about Squad in a mainline segment, isn't it? Squad is an interesting game in my opinion. It reminds me a lot of a cross between Arma Reforger and Battlefield in that it's a PvP game. Milsim PvP just seems like a weird combination to me because in any PvP game there's going to exist a meta, and the meta takes away from the roleplay and away from the, well, Milsim. People are always going to be gaming the system to win. And in any game, there's always going to be some kind of unrealistic method to do that. Anyway, as far as the Abrams goes in Squad, there are 3 factions that use it, being the Australian Army, the US Marines, and the US Army. This is the first entry that has a required multi-crew, allowing up to 4 players to man the tank, positions being driver, gunner, commander, and loader. At a minimum, to operate the vehicle in any effective manner, you need a driver and a gunner, but you could theoretically run it single man and switch seats back and forth, but I would not recommend doing this. The other 2 positions are pretty much just extra machine guns. The commander's using an M2 hooked up to a Crows, keeping him safe, and since the gunner actually reloads the main cannon, the loader is just using an exposed 240 Bravo. It's a better rendition of the tank in Battlefield, but just barely. My War Thunder grind has been on the back burner as of late. I apologize. So we're back here today with the M1A2 Clickbait, which is the highest BR Abrams I could get. I gotta say, it's got some charm to it. I especially like the cuck chair the crew was nice enough to bring with them into battle. This thing is armed with a standard 120mm cannon and up to 4 different round types. Don't ask me which because I'm not entirely sure. In addition to the big boom, you can fire all 3 machine guns at once, the 2 240s and the 1 M2. Although the 2 top-mounted weapons are unmanned, but they're not configured for MO fire, so I guess ghosts are shooting them. I took this thing into some custom games on stream with my chat, but due to a combination of my lack of skill and my chat's bloodthirsty desire to bully me nonstop, I probably didn't get a great feel for the tank. It was explained to me by a friend that pretty much any near-peer Russian tank can penetrate the front end of the tank at any range with 1 shot, and that the Abrams are kind of underpowered in War Thunder as of now. Either way, the model looks great, and the ground vehicles having an in-depth damage model makes more sense to me. With aircraft, the damage model is kind of arbitrary, because with most damage, you're going to crash either way. But with ground vehicles, if you can secure a position, then you might actually be able to get back in the fight after a repair. As I said in the Apache video, no multi-crew is a pretty big drawback in War Thunder when it comes to vehicles that require multiple people in real life. But for what it is, I suppose it's okay. If I had some practice and privacy, ground battles seem like something that could be a good time in War Thunder for me.
Arthur, get out of the tank.
You're not my dad.
Get out of the fucking tank. I am your dad.
You're not my dad.
I am your dad. Get out of the fucking
tank. I'm in a tank and you're not.
I will call
I'm literally in
Get out of the fucking tank.
I'm literally in the tank. You're
Get
not.
out of the
You're not my dad.
Literally get out of the tank.
Tell me it's a militant. I don't give a fuck.
No, get out of the fucking tank.
No.
So the Abrams is a pretty big part of the militaries of modern NATO forces, so the fact that it shows up in Arma across several mod packs shouldn't be a huge surprise, even including a mod for the Abrams X. Trav, the armor commander in my Arma unit, warned me against showing off the one from Cup, but I like it. First off, Cup has most variants of the Abrams, including the M1 A1 and M1 A2, including the SEP versions 1, 2, and 3, as well as the Tusk upgrade packages. The most tricked out version, the M1 A2 SEP V3 Tusk 2, is what I want to go into detail with here. Starting off, the Cup Abrams have interiors for every position, which is pretty neat if you ask me. Some of the other Abrams, like from RHS, don't have a modeled interior. On the exterior, there's about a dozen or so options to toggle on and off, including camo netting for the barrel, turret, and chassis. Hell, you can even change out what kind of gear the tank is carrying on the racks behind the turret, and not to mention a bunch of different camouflage patterns. It being multi-crew is also a huge deal. As I mentioned in the Apache video, needing several dudes to run a tank brings it way up on the realism scale for me, and it's a rewarding gameplay. Now, if you want to play Arma with me and do some combined arms tactics, including the Abrams, the A10, the Apache, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff, the 188th Gaslighters is still recruiting members. We're aiming for a nice hefty 2 infantry platoons, plus armor and air sections, so there's still room for you guys to come join. Ops are every Saturday around 2 p.m. Eastern time, so if you can make that time frame and it sounds like something you'd enjoy, go ahead and submit an application. The unit website is linked in the description. As for the Abrams and Arma, while it isn't in the base game, I can't imagine Arma without it, and slinging darts with the boys in this thing is a good old time. I even managed to take down a helicopter with it once.
We'll now begin the push-up section. Ready? Begin. Down, up, 1, down, up, 2, down, up, 3, down, up, 4, down, up, 5.
Gunner Heat Personnel Carrier is kind of like DCS for tanks, but not as cool. It's a lighter sim than Deplorable Cock-Ass Stimulant, and it doesn't have PvP, but it does have cooperative multiplayer, but not multi-crew play. Each player controls their own individual vehicle. There's also no interior views, just a third-person view, the tank commander's position on top, and the gun sights. It has several different ground vehicles, including the M60 Patton, and of course, the M1 A1 Abrams. Graphically speaking, it's a step down from War Thunder, but a step up from Arma. Ballistics in Grimheart player character are most likely the most realistic of the games we've looked at so far, but the aiming systems are manual, no laser rangefinder or auto-zeroing here. It definitely has a smaller development team than its airborne sibling, and a smaller player base. Interior views and clickable controls would certainly help Gotta Hate Peas and Carrots become a more in-depth simulator, and who knows, maybe that's something we'll see in the future.
Down, up, 75, down, up, 76, down, up, 77, down, up, 78, down, up, 79, down, up, 80.
So this is it. Steel Beast Pro is definitely a sim, not a game. From my understanding, it's actually used to train tank crews in the US, Australia, a bunch of countries. This has everything. Realistic ballistics and damage models, fully modeled interiors, multi-crew functionality, and many tanks, including obviously the Abrams across multiple different eras and variants. This is probably more hardcore than DCS, but there is one big but when it comes to SBP. And that's the price. First of all, it's subscription based. And that's not the biggest deal. I've played World of Warcraft for damn near 20 years. Surely it's not that.
Oh my goodness!
This tank sim is $120 per month. I'm sorry, I will fully admit I did not play this for the video. I did some research and yeah, it's the best Abrams in gaming. There is zero doubt in my mind you cannot get a more realistic tank experience than this other than stealing one. But for $120 a month, I'm simply too poor to verify it. Yeah, so remember in the last video about the F-16, I made the joke about a bunch of different things named Viper? I probably should have saved that joke for here, because you got the tank, the rifle, the SMG, the carbine. I think there's an armored car too. Okay, I guess there's not many M1s after all. God, I'm glad I used it on the Viper. Anyway, that's the video. If I made a terrible mistake or didn't mention a game you thought that should have been shown, go ahead and tell me to go fuck myself in the comments. If you thought the video was shit, hit that dislike. But if you learned something, wrong or I made you exhale out of your nose slightly, please give that thumbs up a little tap. And if you want to see more videos like this one, a subscription is the easiest way. If you want to help me afford food, I have a Patreon as well, linked in the description. And as I said before, if you want to play Arma with me, there's a link to the 188 gaslighters down there too. And of course, please check out Ground News using the link in the description. It's a wonderful tool. Thank you guys so much for allowing me the privilege of your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Okay, it's childish, can't be no homegirl dropping like the NASDAQ. Move white girls like this coke up my ass crack. Move black girls, cause man, fuck it, I'll do either. I love pussy, I love bitches, dude, I should be running Peter in Adidas with some short shorts. B-O-O all over me, my green is where it's supposed to be. Your green is in my grocery. This